Leave the audience wanting more. I'm sure you've heard this piece of advice before. When creating something, make the work as complete as possible, but don't overstay your welcome. If you're lucky, you'll get a chance to make a new installment. Then another new challenge begins. How do you actually give the audience more? In the world of gaming, the first entry in a series will set the groundwork for each subsequent game. Something like, say, The Legend of Zelda establishes exploration, sword fighting, crawling through dungeons, finding items to progress, an open fantasy world, and a player character with green clothes. Each game that follows will pull some element from that original text. Each entry will build upon, refine, reinterpret, or ignore some aspect of the foundations laid in the original game. A series like Uncharted will tell one story over the course of the series. It will follow the groundwork extremely closely from game to game. A series like Final Fantasy will reinvent itself over and over and over again. Each series is different, and there's no single correct way to keep a franchise going. There's one series, though, that shows how the same studio can reinterpret its own game in wildly different ways. One franchise with a single, unmistakable identity, and 4 games that can't be confused from one another. It's a great case study to help answer the eternal question, what do we actually want from a sequel anyway? As of this writing, there are 4 games with Bayonetta in the title. The original game from 2009 is a white-knuckle action game that is so confident in what it wants to be. The 3 games that follow are also great. Each entry takes the ultra-stylish, ultra-powerful witch on a new adventure to stop some otherworldly nemesis. Each game received critical acclaim. A fan of one title will most likely have a good time with the others. But these 3 sequels disagree on some pretty key points. They can't seem to decide what made the original game so special in the first place. Okay, so what does that original game have? The first Bayonetta is one campy game. Everything, especially the title character herself, is pushed to the extreme. It is loud, stylish, flashy, and full of confidence. The game itself doesn't run too long either. How Long to Beat puts it at an average runtime of about 13 hours. The player controls a single character who traverses linear environments. Those environments are vaguely Italian-inspired, but they're not supposed to resemble a real place. At certain parts of the level, the player will get into a brawl with a series of enemies. These are angels, and their designs are grotesque and awe-inspiring. Bayonetta has a simple-to-learn, tough-to-master combat system at her disposal, racking up combo streaks and performing brutal finishing moves. The series' signature move is Witch Time. By dodging an incoming attack, she can slow down time, allowing her to get in some uninterrupted blows. There's a distinct division between the traversal sections of the game and the fighting sections of the game. As in, combat only occurs in specified arenas. After each encounter, the player is graded on their performance. A few chapters change things up. Some chapters are huge boss battle set pieces. There's one that involves riding a motorcycle down a crumbling highway, and another that's an on-rail space shooter, kinda like Star Fox. The story features a supporting cast of characters, such as rival witch Jean, dorky reporter Luca, barkeep Rodan, and slimy conman Enzo, who is absolutely not supposed to be a Joe Pesci character. And in this game in particular, she'll run into a young girl named Cereza, who carries a plush cat named Cheshire. This puts Bayonetta into something of a caretaker role. Cereza is defenseless against the many monsters roaming about. Despite her cool exterior, Bayonetta will have to show a side of herself she isn't used to showing. These are just some of the key elements that define Bayonetta 1. It establishes a setting, a tone, a genre, a basic gameplay loop, core mechanics, a cast of characters, and some themes. This is the case for any first entry in a series. It builds the groundwork for everything that will come after. So, now what? Released in 2014, Bayonetta 2 doesn't rock the boat too much. As an interpretation of the original game, it does more or less what the first one did. This sort of sequel refines what came before it. Bayonetta 2 takes place in a similar environment to the first game. She'll fight similar styled enemies using similar methods. The game's overall structure is the same as well. She'll run into the same supporting cast again while taking down some ominous threat. As a direct sequel, it dishes out another serving of what made the original game special. It's more or less the same experience presented in a different way. While Bayonetta 2 preserves what worked about the original game, at the same time it isn't afraid to change things that weren't as well received. The original game's motorcycle and airplane levels were admittedly kind of a slog. Every time I play Bayonetta 1, I keep thinking that I'm doing something wrong. Like, why is this taking so long? Can this screen stop spinning? Please, I just want to not get shot. Ah! This sequence with the turrets is also not especially great. Bayonetta 2 trims the fat. Those sequences were long and interrupted the pace too much? Okay. We'll make the plane part a lot shorter and replace the motorcycle with the climax horse! Oh, this game's great. Refining these sequences helps with the game's overall pace. Bayonetta 2 is a somewhat shorter game, clocking in at an average of 10.5 hours. This is a lean, straightforward, all-killer, no-filler experience. Bayonetta 2 focuses on what made the original game great. Fast, flashy fights, over-the-top style, gargantuan boss fights. The elements it adds fit in quite well. In Bayonetta 1, the player can equip certain weapons to her arms and legs for a different playstyle. In the sequel, the weapons aren't limb-specific, allowing for a lot more customization. In the first game, she can turn into a panther to run faster, that appears in the follow-up along with a new ability to transform into an underwater snake. Her magic gauge can now be used to perform an Umbran climax, giving a brief burst of unbridled power. Everything the sequel adds fits right in with the original game's identity. This game also has a little one that Bayonetta will reluctantly look after, a kid named Loki. He's a touch older than Cereza from the first game. He's more sure of himself and a bit overconfident. This preserves the dynamic of the witch and the child, though presents that same dynamic in a new light. That's the main spirit of Bayonetta 2. Present the same thing, only a little bit different. Add elements, but don't change things too much. Remove what doesn't work and streamline the experience. Bayonetta 2 looks at the original game and tries to emulate its success as much as possible. This is a pretty standard path sequels can take. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 builds upon the first game's foundation, delivering a similar experience. Sure, there's a sidekick character now and Sonic has some new moves, but it doesn't go out of its way to change the formula of the original. Going Commando, the second Ratchet & Clank title, does a similar thing. It presents new zany weapons to use and planets to explore. It refines the control scheme to make it more user-friendly, but it doesn't add so much stuff that it becomes unrecognizable. Give us the same thing, but different. Refine what came before. The third Bayonetta game makes some pretty huge changes to the series formula. While Bayonetta 2 looks at the original game and sees a template to follow, Bayonetta 3 looks at the original game and sees a foundation to build upon. The first game established a vaguely Italian setting. Well, okay, fine. Where else can Bayonetta go? Maybe Japan or China or Egypt? This game has a multiverse thing going on featuring multiple Bayonettas in multiple regions. No reason to stay in the first game's locale. The levels don't have to be linear. The environments can be more open for exploration. The combat will still be the main focus, but Bayonetta 3 adds a brand new mechanic: demonic summons. When Bayonetta's magic reaches a certain threshold, she can summon a creature to deal some hefty damage. A bit of a tangent. PlatinumGames, the development studio, has experimented with controlling two characters at the same time before. This supposedly was a main feature of Scalebound, a cancelled project about dragon taming. Oh, what could have been. This is also the main hook of Astral Chain, a game that involves using two characters that are tied together to ensnare baddies. This idea was implemented into Bayonetta 3 as well. A whole new method of fighting enemies has been bolted on to the game's already complex combat system. As the game progresses, the player will unlock more demons to summon, ultimately ending up with a menagerie of hellspawn to inflict endless amounts of pain. Bayonetta herself can transform into many more things this time around. I feel like I spent like half the game as this spider thing, because, well, just look at it. The usual cast appears as well, but Jeanne is brought into the limelight a little more through her own side missions. Jeanne traverses a series of 2D stealth missions that are peppered throughout the main story. For a few minutes, the game switches genres entirely. In fact, Bayonetta 3 doesn't hesitate to throw the player a puzzle to solve, an escape sequence to survive, or a slow kaiju fight to endure. Seriously, why is this part so slow? There's a whole new character to play as too. This entry introduces a new character named Viola, who has her own unique playstyle. She uses a sword and summons a giant demon named Cheshire, expanding on the plush cat from the first game. Viola is sort of this game's little one. Notably, the two characters use witch time in a different way. When in control of Bayonetta, dodging at the last second will reward the player with a few seconds of uninterrupted action. but when in control of Viola, which time is activated by parrying an attack. This one change makes the characters feel completely different to control. Bayonetta 3 adds so much to the formula. New characters, new summons, new settings, new lore, new side missions, an entire second major controllable character. It's a lot. I kind of feel like this game added a bit too much, if we're being honest. This style of sequel, one that attempts to expand in every possible direction, is also a really popular way to structure a follow-up. Portal 2 adds a whole lot of stuff to the original game. It's more than twice its length, adds new mechanics and characters. It feels like a much larger game in every way. Open world games do this a lot too. Each subsequent Grand Theft Auto game takes place on a more intricate map than the one before it. Tears of the Kingdom's map is over twice the size of Breath of the Wild's. Multiplayer games also aim to get larger with each entry. Each Super Smash Bros. Roster is significantly larger than the one that came before it. Mario Kart World appears to be larger than Mario Kart 8, which, with the DLC, has 3 times as many tracks as Mario Kart 7. It's natural for each entry in a series to want to do more than the one before it. It's natural to have an entry look at the original title and say, wouldn't it be cool if we built on top of this? After all, bigger is better, right? Less than a year after the release of Bayonetta 3, the world was treated to a 4th game in the series, a prequel entitled Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. Okay, so that girl Cereza from the first game, that's actually a younger version of Bayonetta from the past. So Cereza is Bayonetta's actual name, and this prequel tells her origin story. That being said, comparing it to Bayonetta 1 feels silly. Tonally, Bayonetta Origins isn't campy whatsoever. It reads like a fantasy-inspired bedtime story that's somewhat cutesy and sincere, yet harboring a darkness just beneath the surface. While Bayonetta 1 feels more in line with Dante's Inferno, Bayonetta Origins feels like a play on Lewis Carroll stories. The main hook of Bayonetta Origins gameplay isn't tight, fast-paced action. Rather, this game has the player control 2 very different characters simultaneously, Cereza and her demon companion, Cheshire. See, Lewis Carroll. Love that guy. The left side of the controller pilots Cereza, who can cast magic but isn't especially strong. The right side pilots Cheshire, who can pack a serious punch with his claws and teeth. The two of them must work together to take down the foes in their path. This makes the player multitask, keeping their eyes on 2 characters doing 2 different things while accomplishing one goal. There are no guns, no torture attacks, no transformations, no grading system, there's not even witch time in the main combat. Even though it doesn't function at all like the original game, it does present a rewarding, chaotic combat system with a surmountable learning curve. The level design in Bayonetta Origins isn't linear either. Instead, it opts for more of a Metroidvania-style design. The player will find themselves in a series of interconnected environments. Completing one objective will unlock something somewhere else on the map. As expected, this also means there's a greater emphasis on puzzle solving and figuring out how to get where you need to go. It's a slower paced game, all things considered. How Long to Beat puts it at an average runtime of 17 hours. Jean is the only supporting character that makes an appearance. This is a prequel after all, so it's not that big of a deal. But what does seem like a big deal is the inversion of the whole caretaker motif that runs through the other games. Bayonetta 1, 2, and 3 sees the title character reluctantly looking after someone else. But Bayonetta Origins inverts this. She is the one being taken care of by Cheshire. That theme is still present, though it is presented in a different way. That being said, does this game have any business being a part of the Bayonetta series at all? I mean, just look at the box art. Bayonetta Origins is super small, and Cereza and the Lost Demon is what's supposed to catch your eye. This game takes a witch named Cereza, a plush cat, and the idea of an intricate fighting system, and that's about it. So does it even qualify as a sequel or prequel or whatever? Would this count as more of a spin-off title? Where is the line between spin-off and sequel? Did we cross it already? I wasn't alive when Zelda 2 came out, but I can't imagine how jarring that must have been at the time. It has the same character and lore, but looks, sounds, and plays in a completely new way. All it really keeps is a guy in green exploring and hitting monsters with a sword. Same thing with Super Mario Bros. 2, like, without knowing this game's history, it makes no sense why they would change so much. Like, the characters are the same, it's a side-scroller, but, like, everything else is so different from the game it's supposedly a sequel to. But sometimes a complete departure is what's needed to move a franchise forward. I mean, look at Super Mario 64. What does this really keep from the original? The main guy that jumps a lot, some enemies, coins, I guess. But how the player progresses through the level is completely different. Instead of making it to the end of the stage, the player has to find numerous stars hidden in each open environment. There are no super mushrooms, no time limit. The way the player is supposed to interact with the game is completely different from the game it's a descendant of. Even though Cereza and the Lost Demon might technically be a spin-off depending on who you ask, it presents the original game's character and lore in a new light. It reinvents everything. By only taking the bare minimum from the original title, it is able to create something unexpected and truly wonderful. When looking at an original title, do we refine what came before, expand on ideas, or reinvent everything? What do we actually want from a sequel? The answer oftentimes is some combination of all three. Metal Gear Solid 2 refines, expands, and reinvents all at the same time. Its controls and just the overall feel of the game is a lot more fluid the second time around, at least if you ask me. The overall scope of the sequel is quite larger as well, adding in a second playable character and telling a much more grandiose story. And the series isn't afraid to reinvent itself either. This isn't just another mission with Solid Snake, it takes the series in a new direction. The direct sequel to Resident Evil refines and expands what came before. In many ways it's the same as Resident Evil 1, only bigger and better. But then you get to Resident Evil 4 and it's been reinvented. The camera perspective, the style of combat, the tone, the setting, everything is different. Yet it still reads as a Resident Evil game. So which sequel to Resident Evil is the better sequel to Resident Evil? Is it the one that refines and expands what came before, or the one that expands and reinvents the formula? Doom 2 is pretty much more Doom 1. Doom 3 reinvents the series by taking things in more of a horror direction. Doom 2016 expands the original by cranking up the action as high as possible. Which Doom is the best sequel to Doom? That's part of the fun of a long-running series, seeing how things change and evolve over time, seeing which elements actually define a series, seeing how different entries, sometimes made by the same people, sometimes not, can interpret things in radically different ways. A series changes, yet stays the same. I picked the Bayonetta series for this video because each game takes a radically different approach to its source material. If you ask Bayonetta 2, 3, and Origins what makes the original game special, you'll get 3 completely different answers. I don't know what the future for the Bayonetta series holds, though I wouldn't be surprised if the series is over. PlatinumGames is moving in a new direction. Hideki Kamiya, the series creator, left to start his own studio to work on new projects. The last 2 Bayonetta games sold okay, but weren't commercial smashes. This might be the end. And yet, even after 4 games, I'm left wanting more. I try to imagine a 5th game in this series, and I don't know what to expect. Would it be more multiverse hopping with Bayonetta? Would it be a Viola adventure? Would it be another Origins game? Would it be a return to form? Sequels are tricky. They have to preserve the spirit of an original work. They have to try new things, but not too many new things. They need to meet lofty expectations. They need to do more of the same, but not the exact same thing. They also need to leave the audience wanting more. I want more, but I'm not sure what kind of more I want. Isn't that exciting? Okay, but seriously, Cereza and the Lost Demon is fantastic. Over on the IamADot Patreon, you can find an exclusive companion video about one of the most slept-on games in recent memory. Joining the Patreon will get you access to new episodes days before they drop on YouTube, exclusive bonus videos, and more. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot.